So I have been getting a lot of pushback on my problems with antinatalism videos, so I figured I'd clear some things up. First of all, thank you for watching my video and commenting. Um, so I do this extemporaneously, so I don't have a laid out argument, but I will try to make one here to try and clear up some of the contentions. So first of all, that video was looking at a problem with the David Benatar's asymmetry argument. Um, it was not refuting David Benatar and his other arguments. It was just saying that I disagreed with that particular argument, but I'm still an antinatalist, at least for now, until convinced otherwise. Um, So that's the first thing. The second thing is the idea here for why you would want to be an antinatalist is because it's, I'm arguing for like a chance argument. So, like, if you have a kid, um, that kid could either en masse have a good life or a bad life. Um, and that would be from their own deduction. So they could feel like they lived well, or they could feel like they lived poorly. Um, the thing is, you can't know how they're going to feel about their life. A lot of people feel like they, on average, like their life more than not and want to continue on, but you can't know that they're going to feel that way. They might dislike their life more than liking their life. So, in that sense, you are rolling the dice, and that would be seen to me. And I think you could say this is not subjective, that that would be a moral wrong because you are chancing someone to enjoy or not enjoy something. Um, Now, I know I'm, you know, going to get attacked because I'm saying that's an objective claim, and you could just say that's subjective. Um, so, like I was saying in my video, I'm not completely sure if doing a decision based off of chance is objective or subjective, if that's like objectively wrong or if it's just subjectively wrong. Um, I don't know. I'd have to think about that more. But the point that I'm trying to get at is that is a argument against natalism, is the fact that you have to chance this. And that's one argument. And then you can go into another argument of chance with or I'm sorry, you can go into another argument saying that uh, it's more or less guaranteed that they're going to have to suffer in some way. And because um, they're going to have to die. So that's a guaranteed stress. On the other hand, it's not guaranteed that they're going to enjoy their life um, or find happiness. Now, it's very likely that they're going to find some happiness in their life, but that's not as guaranteed as death because you know that's going to happen. Whereas like in other words, you might just be born and then live long enough to where you're cognizant of what's happening, and then you just die. Um, or you might be born with some kind of debilitating disease and be in constant pain, and then you die. Um, or you might be born and be happy for a long time and then have a debilitating disease and then die. The problem is you can't know which one of those you're going to get. So again, you're rolling the dice there because you don't know what you're going to give that kid. And what I'm saying is that act of rolling the dice, it seems to me, is wrong because you don't know the outcome. And if you don't know the outcome, you are then risking a negative outcome. And if you're risking a negative outcome, then uh, you are morally responsible for that negative outcome, essentially. And then as a result, someone has to suffer because of you. Um, and if avoiding suffering and maximizing happiness is the uh, uh, correct ethical framework, which I think it is, then that would be not a good idea. Um, so to elaborate further, because I know a lot of people don't want to watch my other video. Well, I guess I could use the same logic saying they don't want to watch this one either. But regardless, um, who knows what people do? They're confusing. Uh, the utilitarianism that I am advocating for is a emphasis on negative utilitarianism. So thinking that avoiding suffering should take priority over maximizing happiness. And that's just because suffering is easier to come by and can be more long lasting um, than maximizing happiness. So, just to give a stupid example, and, don't take this too seriously, but just in the sense that, like, it's harder to give someone $1 million than it is to have them go into bankruptcy, say, or something like that. It's just suffering is more ubiquitous. Um, in the same way that we have these needs of, like, I don't know, sexual desire, for instance. Like, most of the time when you feel sexual desire, it's unrequited. You can't uh, do anything about it aside from self-stimulation because you can't just have sex with whoever you want to have sex with. So instead, you have to self-stimulate, and that is not as good as being with the person that you want to be with. Um, that is the case for the vast majority of people. Now, that is comparatively a fairly minor suffering, but it's a good example of, like, the pleasure of being able to be with who you want versus the displeasure of not being able to act on that drive. Well, not being able to act on that drive is a lot more common than being able to be with who you want. So that's why you would prioritize minimizing that problem as opposed to maximizing uh, the ability to be with who you want, because that's not really doable um, in any real way. Uh, Granted, neither is uh, getting rid of sexual desire, but I hope you see my point regardless. Um, Okay, and then the last one about utilitarianism not having a moral foundation. Um, this one comes up a lot. I've seen this quite a bit, and I just don't think it holds water here. I really think it's a waste of time because I I I understand that you want ethical foundations for things. You want to be able to say like, uh, I have a completely unsubjective justification for this, um, and here it is, and there's no way to argue against it, etc. Um, I see the appeal to that, and I think the justification for optimizing, I should say, the justification for caring about happiness, that is axiomatic because we are born into a system of humanity where every single person wants happiness. Every single one. And no one wants unnecessary suffering. There is not a soul who wants that. And you can waste time arguing that uh, this person wants a different, their version of happiness is, I don't know, you know, I don't know what I can say on YouTube, exterminating this race or whatever. And yeah, sure, you can say that, but they still want happiness. So how they get there might be antithetical to someone else's happiness, but everybody wants happiness. So again, it's an axiom, it's a given that people are going to want that. Um, so, you know, I just view it as a waste of time trying to give a justification for an axiom because there isn't really one aside from just this is the baseline default settings of the species and everybody has it. Um, you kind of run into the same problem with like if you've ever heard an argument between an atheist and a theist where they're talking about if you have like a presuppositionalist or a transcendentalist who is kind of presuppositionalist, saying that like, well, you can't justify logic, so everything you say doesn't make any sense because there is no epistemic justification for logic. Because if you give a justification for logic using logic, that is circular, which is a logical fallacy. So there is no justification. So then they beat atheists over the head with that and then say, so therefore your worldview doesn't make any sense, and therefore it needs to be rejected, and instead we need to presuppose God because he makes sense of everything. And again, I see the appeal to that. I think the problem is just like logic is an axiom. And that's the justification. That's all the justification you can give it because that's why it works. Is because if you don't have it, then nothing works. So you have to have it. So I guess in a way you could say logic is also a presupposition. So you could say on a meta level that logic um, is presupposed because otherwise nothing is intelligible. So you don't have to just say that. you need to presuppose God, which would be presupposing a totally different entity. You can just get away with I presuppose logic. And maybe there is some kind of argument that you could make for it that is not a logical argument to justify logic. I don't know how you would do that. I don't even know if you could do that. I don't know. I mean, it might just be beyond the human pay grade. But the point is, I think people really end up wasting time here because they then reject, like in terms of transcendentalism, they then reject having logic as the founding, and instead think that, oh, it must be transcendentalism instead. And like the difference here is logic obviously works. And same with utilitarianism. Everyone obviously cares about happiness. Different people have different conceptions of happiness, and we can quibble about it, but no one doesn't want happiness. You waste time saying that, trying to I don't know, some people in the comments, and if you get this far in the video, you're probably that person who was getting angry. Um, I just Who cares? You know, like getting well, you probably don't know because that's why you're angry, but still, like getting stabbed in the eyeball for no reason is bad. Now, you can argue against it. You can say that, like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe that was able to help you see things in a different light because now you have a silver lining or something. But that's the thing. That's a reason. You see, like, that is now a different case. Now it's not you were getting stabbed in the eyeball for no reason. Now you're getting stabbed in the eyeball, and now you have a reason why it's better. And why do you care about why it's better? Because that helps with a feeling of fulfillment. What does a feeling of fulfillment do? Gives you happiness. You see, like you can't avoid that. So it's a waste of time to say that like these kinds of things are not an axiom. Um, Now you can also quibble over like, well, I can't know exactly how many hedons this getting stabbed in the eyeball is going to net me in the negative. So, you know, in a hedonic calculus, maybe it's negative 500 hedons or something. And then, getting a nice apple vinaigrette salad for lunch is plus 5 hedons or some such. So, uh, getting stabbed is much worse. And objective, objective, objective. Yes, you can't say exactly negative 500 because there's no way to accurately be like, okay, this is negative 500 because in the future this will affect this person this much and it gave them this much pain exactly and this is how they interpreted the pain and etc. You can't do that yet. We're just not there yet. But at the same time, it's not like you have no idea. So like you know that it's bad and you're free to argue against that. But that's what I mean is like I'm not really interested in talking to you if you're like, well, how do you know it's bad? Like, do you see how that's just like being insufferable? Like, I get that. Yes, you need objective, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that, but like sometimes you just gotta like bite the bullet. And maybe that'll make you upset too and be like, well, that's not an argument, and fair enough. Okay. But like, for God's sake, man, getting stabbed in the eyeball is not good. And I guess I don't know what to do with this. I guess if you decide that is the cross you want to die on, then you are free to do that. But society, what's left of it, hopefully can advance beyond that because waste of time, you know? Um, I'll probably just piss you off more. So just by saying that. So anyway, there you go.